Remakes should be made of movies that were unsuccessful the first time, not of successful movies. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Hollywood seems to be obsessed with making movies that were successful. I believe it's in an attempt to exploit nostalgia and make a half-assed remake for a quick cash grab. It may work in some cases, but nostalgia does not substitute good writing and acting. A failed remake of an unsuccessful movie will most probably go unnoticed, but a failed remake of an age-old classic is going to be more disappointing to the fans, and everyone is probably going to end up hating everyone involved with the movie. I'm looking at you, Ghostbusters 2016. The point of a remake/reboot is typically either * the studio has licensed the movie rights to the source material, but their contract stipulates if they don't utilize the license within a certain amount of time, it expires. Fantastic Four comes to mind. * The studio owns the material, and it has a built-in audience, and is therefore a good a bet as they ever get to make Star Trek. From an artistic perspective, what you suggest makes sense, but studios aren't in the business of making art. They're in the business of making money. Studios don't make billion-dollar gambles on unproven source material, and they'd be foolish to do so. Believe it or not, this used to be the prevailing line of thought regarding remakes. Remakes were usually done of films with potential that failed the first time, or letting a filmmaker do a different version of something. These days the business has changed so substantially that remakes, which used to be largely frowned upon, are everywhere. Of movies that were unsuccessful and poorly executed but had potential and a good plot. I can't find it, but Michael Caine was essentially quoted as saying something like, "They keep remaking my good films, but I wish they'd remake the bloody awful ones instead." Artistically I agree with you, but the primary purpose of movies is to make money, and any producer isn't going to throw good money after bad. I'm still mad about how they butchered Aragon. A remake should accomplish something new, it should have a reason to exist other than a cash grab. The one remake I would allow is a Back to the Future, because every 20-30 years it could be completely different. Now a kid from 2025 could go to the 90s where phones didn't exist or anything like that. I think that's a good reason at least. I remember there being this movie with a really cool concept. Something about a guy who finds an alien gun that somehow lands on Earth. The dude who finds it starts using it, which starts changing him. The more he uses the gun, the more he transforms into an alien. Unfortunately it had really poor execution, even though the idea was cool. That's one of the movies I've always wanted to see remade. I don't remember the name though. Edit, it's called Laser Blast, 1978. Tell that to Disney and their live-action movies, excluding Marvel. A perfect example of this was the 2010 Karate Kid with Jaden Smith. I wouldn't mind remakes if the first thought was on story rather than how can we gender or race swap characters and make this a complete woke dumpster fire. Agreed. I saw the Clash of the Titans. That movie was fucking garbage, and there wasn't even the three-headed wolf in the new one. Just WTF is that? You remake a classic beautiful movie, the remake sucks, and on top of that you don't put one of Perseus' major challenges / character he has to battle and defeat? Just fuck right off, the fucking nerve. Aragon should be made for the first time. Agreed. I really hope they don't remake Lord of the Rings. The original is still really good to watch to this day. I always hope someone will remake Avatar: The Last Airbender and do it the justice it so rightly deserves. If the movie wasn't successful at first, it can't be a cash grab. Ocean's 11, 2001, is the perfect example of this. Popular opinion. Remakes almost always suck. I'm looking at you, Oldboy 2013. Looking at you, Ben-Hur and Point Break. In some cases a remake of a good movie can be even better than the original. A good example is It, 2017, was better than It, 1990. Still waiting for the new Ghostbusters. COVID killed all the release. I used to say that, then they started making Spider-Man movies. That's why I'm still waiting on the Time Cop remake. This seems like more of a shower thought than an unpopular opinion, or maybe it's an undiscovered popular opinion. Either way, agreed. Remake Plan 9 from Outer Space. See if it could have been better with a better budget and an actor that doesn't die during production. I think they should also switch genres. A failed romantic comedy becomes a gritty horror movie. A horror movie becomes a romance. Etc. They couldn't in a million years make the remake of The Room, 2003. That one is golden. If you look at Tarantino's process, he basically does this. His movies are often a mashup of the best ideas from a bunch of other movies that aren't great, or that only he thinks are great. Amen. I'd love a reboot of The Hobbit. One movie, without all the extra added crap. Adding to this, don't do a reboot just so you can have a different race/gender lead than the original, because that's the most backwards reasoning to do a reboot. I'm also looking at you, Ghostbusters 2016 and Ocean's 8. He meman red don imagine he, like Point Break. You just want that Super Mario Bros. Reboot. There should also be a time limit, 20 years, or so. I know everyone hates Disney, but doing it every 20 years brings the newer generation in to enjoy similar classics. And helps connect generations together. Like Dalmatians, first one being back in the 60s I believe and the live action being in the 90s. Good classics being revived but decades separating them. I think the only reason a remake should be made is if the director or studio feels like they can add something new. I'm all for a remake for a successful property if the studio or director can add something new to it that makes it better. There are very few movies that are remakes that I can say did the original justice and surpassed it in its own way, for me most notably, Dawn of the Dead, Cape Fear, The Thing, The Mummy, 1999. This most definitely an unpopular opinion. Would you rather have WALL-E remade or the Emoji Movie? I feel the same about music. Starting a new band? Make your first single a cover of a #1 hit from 20 years ago. Yay for your creativity. Same for games. A ton of people know Zelda, I'm never turning down remakes either, but people will buy Zelda anyway. Same goes for Pokemon. TBH, I'd kill for a remake of two specific games as both were really unknown when they came out but were both really good. Giving them a second chance with a well-made remake could make them actually liked by more people. Edit, the two I wish for are Claymates, SNES, and Time Hollow, 3DS.